Hey y'all, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and today in Truck Talk, truck's right there, I was riding in it, but it don't have good air conditioning, so I was rolling down the window and it made a lot of wind noise, so here we are. Today's episode of Truck Talk has to do with being able to let go of a mistake just because you spent a lot of money or time or both making this mistake. Just because you've got a lot of money invested in something that's not serving you. Let's say you've got a computer that you built. I have an example here because I was trying to use a 10 or 11 year old server computer that had dual microprocessors in it for my editing computer, because I watched a YouTube video and it looked like a good idea. It's some kind of the microprocessors have like 20 threads a piece or 20 cores each, and it winds up being like an 80 thread computer. It's a ludicrous amount of threads. Problem is it's slow, and it's all the data processing in it is meant for slower hardware. So it's got slower RAM, slower everything. And I bought this thing and I was messing with it and I was trying to get it to work, and it did for a little bit, but then I started having connection issues between the second CPU and the motherboard. There's a big socket that plugs in, and if that thing gets any kind of trash in it whatsoever, it don't work right. And then my RAM started giving errors, and I had to mess with that, and I finally wised up and got rid of that thing, even though I had spent a bunch of money buying that computer trying to get it to work. I moved on, got a different computer, and now I'm in business and it works great. But it took me a while to realize that I was holding on to that mistake, the mistake of buying that old computer, trying to game the system with it. And I still have it. It's down in the machine shop. I just haven't messed with it in months because I got the other one fixed right and it's working perfectly. So it's set aside, and if I can't figure out something to do with it, it'll go to the e-waste center. But that was a perfect example to me of making a huge mistake and then not being able to let go for a long time because I had made that mistake, because I had invested money in it. I felt like I was compelled to continue to try and get this thing to work. And I spent time and hours and hours and hours. I'd spent all day booting that computer and working on it and installing different operating systems and trying to get it to work. And it just never worked right. It has an error. There's something wrong with it. And I think at the end of the day, I look back and I just decided, you know what? I got to stop. I just have to let go of this mistake and move on with my life. Another example of that, now, this applies to more than just devices you buy. This applies to literally everything. Let's say you leave one job for another one and then find out this job is terrible. You're not obligated to keep that job just because you change jobs. You can immediately go hunting a new one. Just because you spend a bunch of time and energy moving to a new place of employment doesn't obligate you to stay there. You're free to go. Don't feel like that you have to continue down this path, even if it was a mistake for you, because you've already spent a bunch of time and energy making it. Another example, the one that kind of comes to the forefront of my mind is my 20 millimeter AFD lens. I'll give you the short summary. I've had the lens for a long time. When I first bought it, it worked perfectly, didn't have any issues, and that was years ago. I think the last time I mounted and used that lens was probably 5 years ago. It sat on the shelf, and the other day Ron was wanting to mess around with the wide angle lens, and I offered to mail him that thing up there and let him play with it. So I mailed it to him. Well, he played with it, and he found that it was giving him really messed up exposures. He couldn't get it to work right, and he messed with it, and he got to looking, and the aperture was stuck. It wouldn't move. So he sent it back. Sure enough, I agreed. The aperture was stuck. You could move the little lever and the aperture wouldn't change. So I take it down to the shop, go to the workbench. I start taking it apart. And I start in from the back because the aperture is close to the rear. and I get down to the little finger lever that actually moves the aperture physically, and I can move it back and forth, and the aperture opens and closes. So it's not broken, it's just stuck. You can move the lever over and it would stay. If you started pushing it back, it would release and jump over about halfway. And you could look at the blades, and the blades you could see had oil on some of them, and I'm assuming that those blades were sticking together, and that's what was causing it, because once it got past a certain point, it could overcome that and it would stop down like it should. So wanting to clean the aperture, because you got to take it out and wash all them blades with a Q-tip and 91% alcohol, I start dismantling the rest of the lens. The 3 critical mistakes I made with this was, 1, I didn't photo document the lens disassembly as I went. 2, was it 3 mistakes or 2? We'll see. The second mistake was when I got into the front and got down to I had to go in from both sides to get the apertures, like the first piece they put together. It would be, but it is. It couldn't be a cartridge that went in from the back like some other lenses I've dismantled. No, it's a little cup, aluminum machined cup, that the aperture sits down in the bottom of, and has a lens element that sits right in front of it that's held in by a retainer cup, for lack of a better term. So it's a cup shaped nut that's threaded, and it's got 2 pins that go in it that turn it. Well, I start in from the front, and I get down to a certain point, and there's a ring in there that's screwed in, and it's got this keeper plate bolted to it that locates it. And I didn't count the rotations when I took that out. So, I could have screwed it to the bottom and then counted the turns back and figured out where it was. I failed to do that, and I'm pretty sure that thing has to be adjusted properly or the lens won't focus right. That's mistake number 2. Like I said, I don't have photo documentation. I did lay the parts in an orderly fashion, but without knowing that position of that ring, I'm just guessing. And that was a bad mistake on my part. Probably killed the lens without sending it to Nikon to have them fix it. And the lens ain't worth that. We'll get to that in a minute. The third problem, that retaining plate holding that last lens element in is frozen. It won't come out. I cannot get it to turn. I'm distorting the aluminum with the special 2-pin wrench that you use to unscrew these parts with, trying to turn it, and it just won't budge. So rather than continue down this path and finally get that piece out to where I can clean the aperture, but knowing that I'm probably never going to get the lens reassembled right, I'm just scrapping it. I'm letting go of the mistake before it costs me any more. I'm cutting my losses, as they would say, and I'm just going to throw it away and move on with my day. Yeah, it's a couple of $100. You can buy another one that works for less than $200 from MPB. In my world, that's reasonable. I also got to noticing you can get the AFS 20mm f1.8, which is the next generation newer electric focus, for like an extra $150. For like $325, you can get one of them. You get a whole generation newer technology and a little bit faster glass, because it's f1.8 instead of f2.8. It's a little bigger, okay, but it's a way better lens, and I just could not see the value proposition in going any further with this lens. So it's going in the trash when I get home. It's just, life moves on, and you got to be able to look objectively at these sorts of things and make that hard decision. Do I want to continue down the path of this mistake, or do I just want to stop making this mistake and do something else? So with that, I appreciate you watching. If you haven't done it yet, the subscribe button down there, and I think that bell's near it. If you like getting content from me, you might want to turn all them notifications on. And till I see you next time, get your camera out and go take a picture with it, all right? We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.